Hold on tight for the next hour. You're entering into a place, a zone called the alternative to the alternative media. It's a place, a special place where even truth seekers fear to tread.
All right, people, let's move like we've got a purpose.
Affirmative.
Okay, as always, glad you are back on the Investigative Journal on this, what day is it, a Wednesday? Yes, it is Wednesday, and we're here again for another hour on FirstAmendmentRadio.com. You can also get me on YouTube and many other places. People pick up these shows, they're free, and put them all over the place. So if you get them, tell your friends, and don't forget to go to, I'll put something on my YouTube where you can go to Patreon, or to my website at greganthonysjournal.wordpress.com, and you can get shows going back well over 12 to 15 years regarding the Vatican-led New World Order and how the Vatican has to be put into the equation of this push towards globalism and socialism and all these terrible things to destroy America and our freedoms, the ones we have left, by the way. And we try to deal with the Vatican connection to that here. You know, remember, like you always have the connection of the Bilderbergers, you have a connection of the mafia, but you never seem to get to the real culprits. And when I say that, I do that with a bit of experience, having lived in Rome for 7 years. And I also have done a lot of research on it and find that it's the biggest story never told next to the size and shape of the earth, which I consider to be not a sphere anymore. I don't think we're moving at 1,000,000 miles an hour and spinning around. And you know, one of the great things, let me tell you, I got a few things I want to cover before I get into a Vatican Concordat and how this is how they weasel their way into controlling governments. And we're going to do a little bit of a historical look at this so that you can, you know, when you're sitting around trying to convince people that the Vatican-led New World Order and the Vatican and Jesuits are should be reckoned with, you're going to have some ammunition to use because people really won't believe you. Most people don't know it, so they're really going to just consider them to be the Christians. They're just good Christians who've been infiltrated, who have just happen to have like millions of pedophile priests working for them. And then you're going to have the court system in America. Federal courts have ruled in cases that priests don't work for the Vatican, so they can't be sued. And then you'll have a court in the Ninth Circuit, federal court, up these brilliant judges who hide behind these black robes. God knows what they do under those robes. And they ruled that the Vatican doesn't even do business in the United States. Isn't that interesting? They're in the pocket of these people, and they all work together. They run to Rome because that's the richest organization in the world. Plus, they're occult, they're satanic, and boy, they just love that occult system, don't they? They love that kind of, let's drink the blood of children, we'll get stronger. But anyway, when I was doing stories years ago in Rome and I happened to run across, you know, maybe I was in the wrong place at the wrong time, or I could be considered the right place at the right time if you think knowing about this is the right thing and the way to figure out the truth. I put it on the table only and let you do it because I'm not smart enough to get to all of it. But anyway, when I was there, maybe I was in the wrong place at the wrong time, but I happened to meet someone who was actually down in the catacombs of the Vatican, who witnessed a satanic worshiping and the bloodletting of a child. And this girl was a very wealthy and a very elite Italian family, northern Italian family, and this was a rite of induction. And boy, was she messed up. And I happened to meet her and start learning about that satanic element of the Vatican, which I'll tell you will not get you invited to a lot of parties in Hollywood unless you become like them, you know. And you go to one of those dinners. Remember the Pizzagate dinners with that woman who, well, anyway, you go look at all those crazy dinners they go to. Oh, I've even forgotten about what they are, and you probably know them, so email me, let me know. Forgotten the name of that woman who had these occult crazy satanic dinners, and all these celebrities and all these Clintonites were going there, Clinton and John Podesta and all these people, and that whole big Pizzagate story. All right. So what did I want to mention today? All right. Yeah, I was going, you like to sweep the internet before you wake up in the morning. When you wake up in the morning, you go, what's going on in the world? So you go through the internet, and in 5 minutes you know everything, and then you can go out, have your coffee, and forget about it. But anyway, some of the stories. Venezuela had a 7.3 earthquake right up the coast of Venezuela. Haven't they been tortured enough with that socialist government there? I happen to know some people from Venezuela, and I hear that they're killing people for cell phones. They don't have food to eat. And socialism is great, isn't it? Oh my goodness. Just check out what's going there. I know someone that lives there, and he had to send him a cell phone. And also, people are starving, and there's no food on the street, no money. And so socialism really works well. Everybody's poor, living on the street. That's what socialism really is all about. And then the rich guys, they live up in their mansions, and they're all trying to steal the Venezuelan oil. So that's what's going on in Venezuela. Okay, what else is going on? Hawaii is bracing for a huge hurricane. So check that out. Haven't they been tortured enough? My God, these volcanoes have been erupting. Now they're going to get hit by a hurricane, and my goodness, it's our 50th state. What is it doing way out there in the ocean? How did I remember years ago I did a story about the people in Hawaii want to liberate themselves from America, secede, and this was the native Hawaiians, and boy, did they have a story. We don't hear about that much. I remember, there's a group out there. Years ago I did a story and got to know some of those people who live there and say that they don't like the American system there, and they'd rather go back to their native ways. I don't blame them. Better than socialism. But I'm leading up to socialism for a reason. Now, the major portion of the show is going to be, again, concordance. And it's not about a wedding or anything like that. It's not about the Concorde jet. It's about how the Vatican gets their sneaky little, dirty little, stupid fingers into governments and tries to change over the way things go so they can all become this one world, beautiful one world order, globalist system. And you know how many millenniums now? Millenniums? That's what I call them. Millennials or whatever they are. These young people who really hate America. They don't like it. They want socialism. They want a global world. They want open borders. They want everything just wide open. I agree with them only about 2 hours of my week. Sometimes I go over to Mexico and have to go through on the way back, because I live on the border. And I like going there for a number of different reasons. And I have to sit in that border line for 2 hours. Now, to get into Mexico, you just drive right in. They welcome. Go ahead, drive in. What are you going to do? Coming out, you got to sit in this line, and then you answer these border questions when you get there. You give them your passport. You wait for 2.5 hours sometimes. That's the San Ysidro. That's the busiest border line in the world. And it's like a city, because if you've never gone across that border, they sell tacos, burritos, they clean your car. You can get everything done there. You can have lunch. You can actually pay somebody you can even go to the bathroom. You just jump out and there's little bathrooms. Everything. I had my headlights cleaned there, had a good lunch. You can buy things. They sell everything from, food to clothing. So that borderline is also very popular with the dogs. Hey, what are you doing? Hey, enough. I get so many complaints about you. The other day, let me tell you, I was doing an interview with Leo Zagami, my friend from Rome. Apparently, he's got a lot of people who follow it, and I get a lot of hits when I do an interview with him. Now, that's why I'm getting complaints. Stop. yeah, that's why I'm getting complaints. And the guy says, I couldn't listen to that interview with Leo Zagami. There was dogs barking. And I said, tough. Did you hear what he said? He said, yeah. I said, then what are you worried about? This isn't, NBC Studios here. We're running this show on a string and a prayer. So just be glad you could hear them. And if you don't like my dogs, don't listen to the show. That's all I tell people. Because every now and then you're going to hear them. And you're just going to have to put up with it. So if not, send me a lot of money and I'll build a nice little studio. How's that? What? Do you think people send money and, hey, there they go again? Guess what? Okay, so, yeah, I get a lot of complaints. So you're just going to have to put up with it. But anyway, concordats, we're going to talk mostly about how the Vatican gets their sneaky little hands into state governments, countries, anything, just to see if they can push this one world order, one world religion. And we'll get to the strategies behind this, let's go back in history a little bit, so you can have some ammunition when you're talking this subject. But again, when you get onto that element of satanic worshiping in the Vatican, trust me from experience, that's a very difficult thing to talk to people about, because they don't believe, they can't fathom that this would go on in modern society. And let me tell you, it does. And let me tell you, there's a lot worse than that. If you ever just go into the stores and look at the milk cartons and all those kids on there, where do you think they end up? I'm not saying they all end up in the catacombs of the Vatican, but they end up in pedophile rings. They end up in many, many horrible situations. And you can thank the powers that be at the top levels for this. That's a difficult subject. Most people won't believe it. So do some research. And when you talk about the Vatican, I find a lot of times it's good to. And there's very few. Like I've met a lot of Christians. Of course, they center on the Bible and the Protestant Reformation. I mean, there are millions of people killed. I can understand that. But there's a whole element to the Vatican. A lot of people aren't going to buy that either. They'll just say that Christians are a bunch of lunatics. The Vatican's helped to spread that. And it's a religious thing that's over, that never would happen again. But you can also realize that there's a whole element of political intrigue. And I like to sometimes attack the Vatican from their finances and attack them from what they're doing in governments and how they operate, how the Jesuits work behind the scenes still to this day. And what I always mention is this: you're going to deal with people who know about the Vatican. Well, most people don't, to begin with, know about what we talk about here. But the ones that do, they're going to either really center on spirituality and Christianity and how the Catholic Church has persecuted them. And then there is a group of people that understand how they operate in the secular world. And I find it very interesting, because the people that know about them and all their shenanigans in the secular world do not like to cross over into the Christian world, into the spiritual world. Then the people who know about all of their all of the things they do, like rewrite the Bible, change the Bible, try to infiltrate all denominations, they don't want to get into the political element of the Vatican and the secular intrigue. And so what I recommend is that each one cross over into the other's world and know both sides. And then you can get a really good picture of what these people are all about. Now, before I get into the strategy of Vatican concordats, or contracts, or treaties with countries, I very rarely do this, but I'm going to do it today. One thing I wanted to talk about, Elon Musk. We've all heard about Elon Musk. He's the one that wants to start SpaceX, take the first people to the moon, to Mars, and all these things. One problem, Elon: there is no space. So what are you doing? Most likely he can't do it. So who is he? I can bet if you look deep, you'll find some Jesuit connections. So Elon, you got a great idea, but there maybe is no space. Probably is no space like we know it. You can't go to the moon, and you can't go to Mars because there is no Mars. How's that? So look into that, folks. And you can also check NASA out, and they do the same damn thing. So all Musk is doing with all his money is now privatizing this lie that Nassau has been pushing on us for years. And guess what? People are already signing up to be the first ones to go. Interesting. Where are you going to go? Hit that big, huge, take the rocket up, hit the top of the wall, hit the ceiling, and come back down. That'll be a fun trip. So, Elon Musk, got that out of the way. But I very rarely do this, but I want to do it today. First of all, let me say that the American political system is a sham. In theory, it's great. Two parties. We seem to work things out, democratic fashion. We're the bastions of freedom, all that kind of stuff. But the problem is that both parties work together, and they utilize an old Jesuit trick called the Hegelian dialectic, and that is to, on the surface, act like you're always at odds. Capitalism, we're the Democrats, we want this, we're Republicans, and then you pick a side. But the real thing is they all work at the top together. And they're playing you, using you, and in the end, these two parties that seem to be fighting get what they want in the end, their synthesis. So if you look at what's going on today with Trump and the anti-Trumpers, the Democrats who have now turned into Democrat socialists, and the Republicans, they're doing that. The outcome is going to be a global world. We know that. That's what they're doing. And they're pushing all of the last semblance of Americans, the freedom fighters, the Republicans who want a closed borders, who want a nationalist country, who want capitalism to flourish, who want good jobs. They want to see America function the way it should. They're all out there in the open now fighting what seems to be about half the country now who's taking the other global approach. So the Jesuits have it really working well here, putting these two groups together. But the real sad thing is when they rub them together and the end result is going to be a global world like they want. And you can bet your bottom dollar on that. One real good example is if the Republicans were true and what I was saying was false, then if you have a Republican Congress, Senate, White House, you should be able to get rid of Obamacare, right? And get back to a system of, medical care that's privatized, not socialized. Okay? But that's not happening. They didn't do anything. Why? Because they don't want to do anything. Because soon the Democrats will get back in and Obamacare will be there. And pretty soon you're going to have a global world. Now, as far as the border, you're hearing all these stories about, we're going to build the wall, we're going to do all nothing. It hasn't been built. It's all rhetoric. And what will happen is this. They're now lining up people who want the wall against the people who don't want the wall. But in the end, there isn't going to be a wall. There isn't even going to be a border. So don't worry about it. All you millennium globalists out there are going to get your way in the end. And what you're going to find in the end, though, is not this kind of panacea world that you think. This great world where everybody gets along. You're going to have absolutely no rights. And once they control everything, you will never be able to even leave this country. So you better get to like America, because they're not going to let you out. You watch. Now, I very rarely do this. Take a mainstream article from one of the insiders and present the article in full, and then kind of piece it apart and show you why what I just said about capitalism and socialism and how they're rubbing it against each other now in America to get their way of globalism is a guy many of you young people may not remember. His name is Newt Gingrich. He was a former Speaker of the House, and he's always on Fox News. And he's not only the Speaker of the House, he was the one who was the architect of what they called Contract with America that led Republican Party to a victory in 1994 by capturing the majority in the U.S. House of Representatives and blah, blah, blah. And he's always on Fox News. He's also a supposed historian. His wife, by the way, is the ambassador to the Vatican. Yes, that's her position. So you know he's right in bed with the Jesuits, and always has been. And Newt plays the part of a conservative Republican, And in the article, he's playing his part quite well. And he's written an article that's going to prove to you that they are going to get their way and have socialism moved in by a globalist country here in America. And you're not going to see the Donald Trump people ever again have this kind of voice. And they're picking them out now and picking them off one by one. And Newt Gingrich is standing in the Trump camp because he's a Republican. But let's look at who he really is. He really works for, his wife's the ambassador to the Vatican now, and he's working with them for years because you always have to understand they have to have two sides always fighting, abortion, anti-abortion, for the war, against the war. And in the end, they get their way anyway, right? How many people were against the Vietnam War? Most of the country, and all these people, the people that were for it were gung-ho America. And you would think because so many people were against the war, we'd never have a war again, right? Well, we've had nothing but wars. We're engaged in the biggest war in Afghanistan for the last 17 years. Do you realize we're still there? And you know the reason we're there? To protect the poppy fields. And we've done a number of stories on that. And they've had to move their drug operations to Afghanistan after the last place they were at had a drought. And this is when they started this years ago. So it's very important that they keep the poppy fields going. And then many of the American soldiers go there to protect them. So we're in Afghanistan 17 years. So in the end, if you put the Hegelian dialectic together with the Vietnam War, you had the anti-war, the war people, and you would think that there would be no war because most people didn't realize this war was crazy and we should never get in one again. But we got into even more and bigger ones because that's what they wanted. That's the goal they wanted. And they pushed that. Now, Gingrich is a Reaganite, worked with Reagan, and Reagan is probably one of the biggest traitors we've ever had, even though most people will say we love Ronnie, etc., etc. But he was the one who reestablished Vatican diplomatic relations after they were cut off, after the Patriots and our legislature back then understood the Vatican killed Lincoln. And so they said, we don't want anything to do with you anymore, but that's long forgotten. According to everybody, they've changed. Well, let me do this article on Gingrich, and I have to start it off in the second half hour because I only have a couple minutes. And I apologize if I can't get to concordats, but I did a whole show yesterday. I should be able to do a little bit. But I do want to get to this article to prove a point. It brings you right to modern day American politics here. And like I said, I very rarely, if ever, take an article by one of these guys and go through it, piece it apart. And the reason is mostly I take little segments of what they say and piece it apart. Because I can't stand doing it for the whole article, to be honest with you. By the time I get to the fifth paragraph, I want to go throw up. But today I will I will try to stop that from happening and get through this article done by one of the biggest Vaticanites, Jesuit infiltrators, working as a Republican. His wife is the ambassador now to Rome. That's a great job, isn't it? Ambassador to the greatest satanic organization in the world. What does she do? What do they do there? Their job is to make sure it never gets out, never gets told. And you can bet they got journalists in Rome that work right with them. They're all together here. Let's not get these stories back to America. We may have a real problem. Oh, we can tell them about the pedophiles and everything because, everybody knows that these priests, because they're not married, are crazy. So let's just leave it at that. Back in 3 minutes on the Investigative Journal.
The program you are listening to is 100% sponsored by you, the listener, on this First Amendment Rights Media channel. You will notice that there are few commercials on this radio network. There's a good reason for that. Corporate advertising dollars come with strings that limit program content. So without your help, these programs cannot continue on internet or our several affiliates. If you benefit by the educational law programs, we ask you to give. If you are admonished or nurtured by the Bible and ministry programs, we ask you to give. If some voice a cause that you are passionate about, we ask you to give. If you believe in any of these, we ask you to support them as you would a missionary on a continual basis, as if giving a tithe for missionary radio. These programs are not commercially viable and must be supported by those faithful to the cause of truth. Look for the button to sponsor your favorite programs at our listen and schedule pages on the internet. Then, when you subscribe, we will send you the last quarterly MP3 CD of that program immediately, and continue to do so with each new quarter. We will also give you unlimited archive access to all of our programs. We're asking you to give much less than a tithe, so that you may also send support directly to a particular program host, cause, and anywhere else the Spirit may lead you. Do all to the glory of our God and Creator, for His holy nation, the only kingdom that will last forever. Thank you for listening.
Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org. When it comes to prophecy today, much of the evangelical Christian world has their eyes on Israel, waiting and watching to see when the third temple will begin to be built. The plans are drawn, the Jewish people are eager. Most evangelical Christians today believe that the rapture will happen before the third temple is built. Hi, I'm Michael Eugene. I was taught that Daniel's 70th week was in the future. Is that really what the Bible teaches? Have we searched the scriptures and found this to be true? Why is it so important for a re-established Israel to build a third temple in Jerusalem? Is it necessary to build a temple on the same location already occupied by the Dome of the Rock? Is it necessary for sacrifices to take place in the temple on Temple Mount? Is there really a rapture followed by 7 years of tribulation? What is the New Testament temple? Can we identify history and prophecy? Who is the first beast in Revelation chapter 13? Who are the 7 kings in Revelation 17? I have asked all these questions, and I have found Nicholas Arthur's new book, When the Third Temple is Built, answers all these questions and more using Scripture to interpret Scripture. The Bible says that no prophecy of Scripture is of any private interpretation. Nicholas shows us in his new book, When the Third Temple is Built, how the Bible interprets prophecy and not man's private interpretation. Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org.
The following program is labeled dangerous and off limits by the supreme Jesuit command. But stand tall, people. Listen up, and you may just learn something.
Oh, dear Lord Jesus, this ain't happening, man. This can't be happening, man. This isn't happening.
Okay, let's get right at it here on the Investigative Journal. First, go to my website at greganthonysjournal.wordpress.com, and if you're one of my many subscribers that do it free, you get it free, and you think it's worth it, chip in a little bit to keep the show going. You can also go to Patreon. I think that's the way they pronounce it. I'll put it on my YouTube, and you can go there and help out the cause as well. Okay, like I said, hopefully we'll get to concordats, but I don't know. But we will do it tomorrow, and you can go to yesterday's show and read all about it. Or listen, I'm so used to saying read all about it because I started out as a print journalist. And since nobody knows how to read anymore and just watch YouTubes, go to the YouTube and look at it. Okay, he wrote an article, and the headline shocked me a bit. I said, oh, who wrote this? And then I find out it's Mr. Newt himself. Democrats have no idea what demons they are unleashing. Okay, now let's look at this from the point of view that he's he's a Republican, but the point of view that he works for somebody else and he wants to get this story out because he knows the outcome here. He already knows that capitalism, America's going to fall, that they're going to move in a globalist system, and he's one of the last remaining Republicans out there fighting for America. Because then he pulls all the people left in America who believe in that, and you would think it was only white Anglo-Saxons, right? No. There's a lot of Mexican Americans, a lot of all these people who've profited in America would like to see it go. Yeah, there's still a lot of people. So it's about half and half now. The goal of the Vatican-led New World Order and Newt Gingrich is to now bring this all out into the open, have both sides fight, so that in the end, they get their way and they will get globalism, because they're going to, in the meantime, take your guns away. You're already on socialistic medicine. That, if the Republicans were for real, they'd have changed that. They give you a few little tax cuts that, and don't even explain to you, nobody does, that income tax is unconstitutional anyway. And, we've proved that on this show. And that seems to be forgotten about. And that's something you don't even want to get into, because they just know that, and they just don't like people publicizing it, because they've already factored in the non-filers and people who know they don't have to pay it if they don't want to. And they've already factored in it's better to take those losses than to let many people know about it and then take a huge loss. So they just want you to keep quiet about it. So I am keeping quiet about it. You didn't hear it from me. Okay? Did not hear it from me. And if you did, I'll deny it. And then I'll just say, hey, I'm crazy. I'm just, I had a bad day talking about that stuff. But that's not the way it is. Of course, I want to pay to the Pope's IR, the Pope's collection agency. Of course I do. I'm a good Catholic. I was born into the Catholic faith. Okay. So here's Newt Gingrich. Now we know what he really is. So try to figure out why he's doing it. I'll help you along the way. He said a few weeks ago, a member of the Democratic Socialists of America, the DSA, this just started, wrote an article for Vox explaining the movement's goals. Now, Vox is a Jesuit, I believe, a outlet that's spreading that we're going to change America from top to bottom. And their goals are to end capitalism and radically change America. That's what their goal is, and they're going to get there. Newt's just helping you here to understand that, of course, there are going to be people who disagree, but this is what's coming. Okay? In normal times, so he's already admitted these are not normal times, right? Okay, so they're telling you, don't think it's normal anymore, that America is capitalist. Okay? The declarations of a fringe party and ideology in America would not merit much attention. Okay. Now, we've always had fringe parties in America, right? Like communists. We have libertarians, but they don't have much say. They're just out there kind of, gobbling up the few people who realize, oh man, I can't function in a capitalist society, and there's got to be a better way. Yeah, I'll tell you a better way. Just don't get involved in any of it. Just go about your daily life and create your own little world, so to speak. Now, in normal times, he's telling you they're not normal anymore. America's not normal. However, these are not normal times. He emphasizes that. A new Gallup poll shows that more Democrats have a favorable view of socialism than capitalism. More? How many more? I guess you got to go to that Gallup poll. So now they're telling you Democrats have changed. They're really democratic socialists. Are they like the ones in Nazi Germany or like the ones in the French Revolution? Maybe. And who was behind the French Revolution? Let me go back in history. I'll tell you, it was the Jesuits. They were very much behind it, although you're not going to hear that from Newt, because his wife is the ambassador to the Vatican. And if he said that, he'd have to get a divorce. So this pattern has been building for a while. Yeah, it has. Well, remember Bernie? The guy, Bernie has even been on Saturday Night Live, right? Remember? Senator Bernie Sanders took socialism mainstream in the party during the 2016 Democratic presidential primary. Let me tell you how much of a socialist Bernie is. After he allowed Clinton to screw him over, this was all orchestrated, of course, and all they were doing is getting out this socialist idea. He went and bought himself a $250,000 more house on some, he already has a big house in Vermont or wherever he's from, up there, on some big lake there. There's your socialist senator, right? I bet you can't afford to buy a house on a lake in upstate Vermont or New York or wherever you are up there. But since those primaries, the Democratic Party candidates have been increasingly attaching themselves to this ideology. Most notably, a young member of the Democratic Socialists of America named Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez defeated a senior Democrat in New York's 14th Congressional District and has been on a whirlwind media tour spreading the gospel of socialism. All right, so they have their Hispanic American now running for Congress, spreading socialism in America all over the place, and of course CNN and all these left-wing organizations are giving her a lot of airtime, and Fox is fighting it and saying it's crazy. So they're playing that Hegelian dialectic in the media as well. So our Vaticanite here, Mr. Gingrich, says the Vox article or manifesto is worth taking seriously. All right, so now he's telling you. Here's a guy who supposedly hates globalism, hates, loves capitalism, is a Republican, but he's really telling you that this is serious, folks, and it's going to happen. Because in the end, that's what he really wants. Because he's playing a game with you. And if you don't believe me, why is his wife the ambassador to the Vatican? Those things just don't happen because she was a good Catholic or something. But anyway, he said, I was struck by two things when I read this. First, it was remarkably honest. Wow. So he's really telling you, hey, this is going to happen. It's serious. It's normal now, and it's an honest way to be. So isn't he kind of, in a way, maybe reading through the lines saying, this is what's happening, folks, so get used to it. Now, the writer of this article, Megan Day, a member of the East Bay chapter of the Democratic Socialists of America, explicitly debunks the apologists in the mainstream media trying to paper over the group's radicalism. So they're saying this ain't radical, this is the way it is. She quotes several prominent news analysts who argue that democratic socialism is just New Deal liberalism rebranded. New Deal, remember Roosevelt, New Deal, the whole thing? She then dumps a bucket of cold water on them, writing, in the long run, democratic socialists want to end capitalism. So now they're telling you their goal. Got to get rid of this system. The rich have gotten rich enough here. Now they're going to go over to China or somewhere and get rich and leave America to, they'll still get rich. But everybody else will be kind of, all earning the same money, all getting the same benefits, which are none, living in little shacks, not being able to leave the city, not being able to drive cars because that's going to pollute the air, and not being able to, you're going to be told how much water you can use. You'll probably be told how much air you're going to be able to breathe. Because you're in a socialist country and you're doing it for the betterment of mankind and the betterment of your planet. The only problem is it's not for the benefit of mankind, and you don't live on a planet, you live on a flat surface. Big problems. Social democratic reforms. Now back to Mr. Gingrich. How much time? Okay, I got plenty of time here. I'm not going to get to the concordats, so we'll do that tomorrow. In fact, she writes that the liberal big government reforms, which the movement has chosen to rally behind in partnership with the Democratic Party, are simply stepping stones to this eventual goal. Right. I mean, that's exactly what's happening with Trump right now. You're seeing a shift. When I grew up, the Democratic Party was kind of like the Republican Party now. And The Republicans were just these stodgy old white businessmen who are always trying to, get us into wars and all. The Republicans had a bad image. So now what they've done, they've switched the Republicans to be Democrats, but they call them Republicans, because that's really what Trump is if you look at what he's doing. And now the Democrats are turning into like Nazi socialists. That's why they created Antifa, the anti-fascist group that's going around, making sure that Republicans don't go to restaurants because they're not worthy of being in public if you follow Trump, right? Now, social democratic reforms like Medicare for all are, in the eyes of the socialists here, part of a long and even process of building that support and eventually overthrowing capitalism. She writes, the explicit goal of ending capitalism, I wonder how much money she makes. All these people that want to overthrow capitalism are going to end up rich. That doesn't make sense. But this explicit goal of ending capitalism makes clear that what Ocasio-Cortez, that's the Spanish-American woman who's now been given her right to run for Congress. Now they got to have everybody, right? How about not a Polish president? Come on, we had a Polish pope. Why can't I have a president? Spaniards, all these people from Mexico want, hey, we got to have people from Mexico run our country too. Well, how come people from Poland can't be president? I got just as big a beef as you do. And I agree with you. I want a Polish president and a Mexican vice president. How's that? Okay. So we have Ocasio-Cortez. She said cryptically in a recent interview that, quote, capitalism has not always existed in the world, and it will not always exist in the world. Boy, what a great historian she is. Yeah, I know. It didn't exist when there weren't even government. Yeah, the first people on earth, they didn't even have a government, Ms. Cortez. Capitalism has not always existed, and it probably won't exist again, maybe. Who knows? Maybe we'll think of something even, in your eyes, worse than capitalism. Something where everybody gets rich. We can all be entrepreneurs. How's that? That would really kill you, wouldn't it? Yeah, you don't want anybody to have any money, just the guys at the top and you. Because you're going to clean up when you go to Congress. What do you make of money? You get free health. You get great health care there, not the stuff people get. You get, you don't even have to abide by some of the laws that we do. And you want to tell me you want to be a socialist? Well, start with your own pocketbook. And say you're going to run, but you're not going to collect any money. You're not going to take the special benefits you get as a congresswoman. And you're not going to take the medical care. In fact, tell them you're going to live in a cardboard box. Just like half the people in your district will be doing if you get socialism. So, this is clear. This, he says, now this is Gingrich, saying this is a clear threat to the system, which has made us prosperous and envy of the world. Yes, it has made you prosperous. The Vatican, Newt Gingrich and the Vatican, it's made you guys at the top very prosperous. But I appreciate the honesty. Now, let me just say this. Nothing in this article or what Cortez is saying is honest. Let's get that straight. Because it's all orchestrated. And there's an ulterior motive and a goal here. If they were honest, none of this would be happening. Newt Gingrich wouldn't be around, and neither would Cortez. So let's just get away from this bullshit about honesty. Now, ultimately, he says, Gingrich, the United States is a democratic republic. Thank you. I did know that. If Cortez and Senator Bernie want to try and convince most Americans to end capitalism and embrace a planned, totally redistributed economy, they are welcome to use the democratic process to do so. Yeah, they ain't going to use it. Look, he knows it too. It is up. He's just telling you they're not using a democratic process. And that's how they're going to get to their goal. So it's up to those of us who know better to convince Americans of socialism's folly. Good luck. I've given up trying to convince Americans of anything outside of, what TV show they should watch. Because it's useless. I mean, this is a world that is not based on reality. So let's get that straight. Most people, look, there's people in, who's that? That gay transgender person running for governor in Vermont doesn't even know what socialism is. Couldn't explain it. So how do you expect the rest of them? Because that's what we're going to have, Those kind of people. And I have nothing against it. If she wants to cross-dress and be a woman now, that's fine with me. I'm 100% against. I don't agree with that kind of lifestyle. Because I think she's politically pressured into doing that. Now, she go, oh boy, I'm going to get a lot of heat for that. But isn't that a good possibility? Because there's a hell of a lot more gay people in the world now than I used to remember. And they'll say, well, everybody's coming out of the closet now. Well, hell. What do you mean closet? They're coming out of an auditorium of people who are sick and tired of, they want to get some special political favors and have something to do during the day to go to these gay marches. But there's nothing wrong with it. Let me preface that so I don't get too many hate mail emails. Well, however, the second notable item in Day's article, and I'm sure this is really important, the second notable item in Day's article suggests that democratic socialists don't value democracy all that much. Wow, that's pretty... Day also identified herself as a staff writer of the New York-based socialist magazine called Jacobin. Well, guess what? If you realize the Jacobin Party and the French Revolution, in fact, several members of the Democratic Socialists of America are writers for the Jacobin magazine. And Newt now, he also touts himself as a historian, and he says that this magazine embraces socialism movements in the past and instead relies on the traditional method for socialist revolution, bloodshed, violence, and tyranny. So he's telling you that's what's coming. Because the Jacobins, and he gives you a little bit of gloss over history of the French Revolution. But let me tell you, when you really look into the French Revolution, it was a period of time where there were many revolutions in the world, and the French Revolution was very brutal, and you can really bet your butt the Vatican was behind it along with the Jesuit order. And he leaves that out, like I said, because his wife is the ambassador of Rome, of the Vatican, and if he said anything true about this, he would have to get a divorce, and she may lose her ambassadorship. We can't have that. Oh, no. I do not want to destroy this man's life for lying. No. Let him go on with this, because there's nothing real anyway in the world, so let him have fun. The Jacobins were the most violent and radical political group of the French Revolution. Led by Maximilien Robespierre, the group responded to a growing backlash against the revolution by executing any one of their so-called Committee of Public Safety deemed insufficiently loyal. The Jacobin clubs located throughout the country were used as a secret police force to root out dissent among politicians and general populace alike. Historian Timothy Tackett estimates that almost 40,000 people were killed under the Jacobin control of the French government. Many were beheaded by the guillotine in a grotesque public spectacle after a show trial, and others were brutally executed with firearms. In the case of one period in the city of Lyon, people were executed in mass by cannon fire. This period of carnage was known as the Reign of Terror. So here we go. He leaves out the Jesuit or Vatican connection here, of course, and gives you a few more things to really look at and go, oh my God, is this coming here? Well, what he's really telling you is that these people that are backing socialism belong to the Jacobins, and this is what's coming. This is how they're going to change over America in the end. And the reason that there's so many, that Trump is taking this, everything in the news is Donald Trump, right? And the Trump people. And the last vestige of American middle class and people who really just want to live a good life, have their farms, and live in their country towns and enjoy their life. But that can't happen. And the reason that he's bringing this up is that he's connecting people prominently in the Democratic Socialists to the Jacobin magazine and their real stance, and he's telling you that this is what they're going to do, and this is how we are going to get this huge change in America. It's going to come. Now, you would think Gingrich is against it, but he isn't. Because he wouldn't be working with the Vatican if he was. That's all I can say. And you can connect the dots for yourself. But that's where we're really at here. And that's what this article is all about. Now, if you're going to read it without the other, having this kind of other basis of information as something you can use, because you've studied this connection of the Vatican and the Jesuits, you wouldn't know. You would just think that Gingrich is putting this story out there because he's a staunch Republican, wants to see America prosper, and he wants to get rid of any idea of the Jesuits or the Socialists. And he also believes that the Vatican is a stalwart, great organization of really good men, holy men, with a papa. And that's what you would believe if you didn't really connect the dots. But nothing could be farther from the truth. And so I recommend you read that article with your own thoughts about it, using this information. And I enjoy doing, I very rarely do this, but I think it serves a good point and shows you exactly what they give you. Now, the part of history he gave you is what's called revisionist history. And that's when they rewrite what the French Revolution was really, who was really behind it, just like they rewrote the American Revolution. Just like they rewrote many of the revolutions during that period of time in other countries around the world, in European countries. And that is what he is. He's a revisionist. That's what they should put in his title, revisionist historians. Because they're not going to go the extra mile to get to the bottom of really what happened. And you know the whole story. It's the victors who write the history, right? And you think they're going to tell you how they really got to be victors? They ain't going to tell you it was a dirty fight. It's kind of like they're boxers, and they had two boxers, and they come to the ring, but they put on stuff on their glove that's going to put you to sleep when you get hit. Yeah. Right? You know, the guys that put that stuff on their boxing gloves, they used to, and you get hit, and all of a sudden you're falling asleep. That's what they do. They fight unfairly, and then they change history. Back tomorrow on the Investigative Journal.
The book of Revelation says, the spirit of prophecy is the testimony of Jesus Christ. This is at the very heart of FirstAmendmentRadio.com. In that spirit, we have created the Prophecy Reality News app for all of your mobile devices, streaming First Amendment Radio 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Available for your Apple, Android device, and smartphone, absolutely free. Get the Prophecy Reality News app installed today so you can listen to First Amendment Radio wherever you are. The Prophecy.
Since the beginning of time, kings have sought it, nations have fought for it. It has been traded, it has been borrowed, it has been purchased, it has been stolen. There's a reason for it. To secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and to our posterity. Invest with the security of gold and silver. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188 or visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net. Listen to Financial Survival with your host Melody Cedarstrom right here on FirstAmendmentRadio.com at 4 p.m. Eastern or 1 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net or call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free 1-800-375-4188.